But thanks for joining us, everyone. My name's Dan Bamba. I'm the Marketing and Community Engagement Manager here at Flushing Town Hall. My preferred pronouns are he, him, his, and as a visual description, I'm an Asian American man with short brown hair and wearing a blue and red plaid shirt. As I mentioned, please be sure in the chat to change your send to all panelists and attendees so everyone can see what you're doing. And if you haven't already, send us a note of where you're from and your artistic discipline. And I see Judy's used it already, but there's also a Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. So if you can use that to send any questions that you have. So we are here for presenting your work online for a virtual audience. It's my pleasure to introduce Steve Mecca, the Director of Production here at Flushing Town Hall. Steve, if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name is Steve Mecca. I'm a Caucasian male. My preferred pronouns are he, him, his. I have brown hair. And right now I have a green background because of the fluorescent lights that I'm using. So this is the first tech lesson we'll talk about, which is don't have lighting like this in your presentations.
We're using this as a what not to do, right?
Yeah, exactly. As Dan has been mentioning, if you are using the chat, there is a little drop-down menu next to the to section. Just make sure it says panelist and attendees. That way everybody can see what you're writing. And we do have a Q&A feature on Zoom at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You should be able to hover over that on your mouse, or if you're using a tablet, it should be there as well. Just use that for any questions, and we do want specifics. There's going to be a lot we're going to cover today. It's very broad. Because of the nature of tech, there are 1,000,001 ways to do one thing. So anything that you have in your mind as a specific question on how to get from A to B, please put it in the Q&A. Please use the Q&A instead of the chat, because what it does is Zoom organizes all of the questions so that we can get to them later and answer them one by one.
Great. So yeah, so with this session, really the content is up to you guys, but we're here to tell you, with these crazy times, how the best way to present it is, how to keep an audience engaged, and tips and tricks that Steve has learned along the way, bringing us a lot of our Flushing Town Hall's programming online. So Steve, let's start with that. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the programs that you've brought on? What, March, February?
Yeah, I think our first attempt at a live stream was late May. Actually, no, I'm sorry. It was actually in April. We did our first virtual jazz jam. That was our first foray into this space. We did it on Zoom, and it was a bumpy ride. And that's why we're here, right? We're here to learn from successes and failures, of course. So we've done a lot of using Zoom as a workaround, which I want to talk about, and then we've been doing we have our Lioness Women in Jazz concert series, which is we have another one tomorrow night at 7:30, I believe, with Lauren Sevian, and that is done through a streaming software that we have called Wirecast. And that is, it's more on I guess it's more on the pro level, but we can get into all that. There's plenty of time for it. Mostly things have been through Zoom at this point, and what we're doing in that way, which Dan, you can stop me because I know
we'll talk about it later down, but I think we've been able to, if you're not familiar with Flushing Town Hall, we do a lot of global music and global performances, jazz and education programs. So there's been different ways of bringing them online. Our virtual Diwali festival was a couple weekends ago. It was a mix of pre-recorded and live talks over Zoom, but streamed over YouTube.
Yeah, and we had a live DJ there too, who came in through that.
And our Global Arts for Global Kids art classes, those are pre-recorded and we stream them every day. We publish them every day on Facebook and YouTube so people can watch it when they premiere, but also they're available at all times. And like Steve mentioned, our Lioness Women in Jazz concert series, it's pre-recorded performances that the musicians performed at a socially distant and safe space, but then had a live component during the presentation. So it would cut using Wirecast, like Steve mentioned, cut from the performances to a live Q&A that, you know, we were collecting questions throughout the chat. And this was all just meant to really kind of adapt to the times, that now that we can't have live performances or presentations, what is the best way to get the programming out to you guys as consumers, as art lovers, as supporters of the arts? So, you know, this is all really because of Steve. Steve's been really doing a trial by fire. So I thought for this session, I thought he was a perfect person to really guide us, and so we can learn from him his experiences of bringing everything online. So I guess we start off as just, you know, post COVID-19, now that we're in this world, like how have things changed, right? And I think that's a great way to start. And maybe we can start with, and to Judy's question, how different presentation formats have changed for you.
Sure. Well, we don't have the luxury of a captive audience anymore. It doesn't bother people if people leave a stream. You know, no light seeps in from the hallway anymore. There's no more sounds that indicate that somebody is, you know, leaving and getting up and just disrupting the whole audience. So, and in some ways that can be good and bad. As a performer myself, who has grown up in tech, I feel everyone's pain, to put it mildly. And yes, it has been a trial by fire for sure. I came into this role in March. My first staff meeting was the day we were closing. So that
So
in and of itself I'll let that speak for itself. So I was perfectly prepared to be dealing one-on-one with artists and audiences, and my specialty is sound, so I was I was ready and willing to start mixing live sound. And here we are in the box, and that's a good term for everybody to understand that in the audio world, that's how we describe mixing audio without any other mixing boards or anything. It's an in the box mix. So we are now working in the box, and that gives us a whole lot of possibilities, and it also gives us a lot of constraints too. So the other thing that's changed is it's all, there's, well, I'm trying to look over our notes that Dan has so cleverly put together. So presentation formats, obviously we're looking at streaming and we're looking at pre-recorded content, and so we have to figure out what kind of engagement we want and how to evoke that kind of engagement from our spectators, our audience. So a lot of it is taking this sort of like a broadcast company approach in a way, where people are going to be consuming content in a million different ways, or three top different ways, not a million ways, three ways, right? They're going to watch it, they're going to read it, or they're going to listen to it. So how do we give them all of that to keep their attention? So depending on what you're presenting, that's going to change for everybody, but you have to be at least willing to accept that not everybody is going to want to watch, not everybody's going to want to listen, not everybody's going to read, but they're going to do one or two of those, and that's where you have to hit them from all different points, from all different angles.
So Steve, how do you make that decision though? Like between, I want this to be purely live, or I want this to be pre-recorded and have it just premiere, or be a hybrid of both? How do you make that call?
Okay, so for one, for those of you who don't know what a premiere is, Premiere is a feature on either YouTube or Facebook Live, and I think a few other platforms where you can just upload a a single video file. It will premiere at a specific date and time that you set. There will be a countdown. It'll behave like a live stream, so there will be a live chat. The only difference is you're not doing it live. But back to your point, Dan, um, man, there's so much here. Uh, you know, it really depends on the complexity of what you're doing. Me, I come from a music background, so if you want a bunch of people to play at the same time, that's either one, impossible. We're talking about in different locations. It's either one, impossible, or two, very, very expensive. Which I did get a chance to see a performance of opera that was 100% live. It was a momentously expensive challenge. And so that's completely off the table right now. So you have to consider what the level of complexity is in what you're trying to do. If you are a visual artist, which a lot of people who are RSVP'd are, you may want to go for a hybrid, a live and pre-recorded presentation. But again, don't discount the value of a pre-recorded presentation because it's very safe. To do things live, your internet connection has to be really good, and we're going to go over that. Your computer power has to be really good. We're going to go over that. And I'm seeing the questions coming in. This is great. So you have to consider not only what the complexity is in terms of your performance, but what your capabilities are for hardware, computer hardware, upload speed on your internet, and just generally how much time and energy you can put into learning the processes that come with putting it all together.
Great. So let's answer actually Judy's first question about other online venues free that we'd recommend. So let's start talking about streaming platforms.
Sure. So we have streaming platforms and we have streaming software. Okay. Streaming software outputs a signal or a stream of data to the platform. I just want to clarify that for anybody who may not know this stuff. Normally the platforms go YouTube, Twitch, Facebook Live, there's Vimeo, of course there's Zoom. If you're a musical artist, there are other platforms that allow you to stream free. I have to remember the name of this. It's a big one right now. Hold on a second. I'm sure someone's going to pop it up in the chat too. I'll remember it. I know I will because I just signed up for it like a couple of weeks ago. But as far as, those are the top right now. But you have to also consider, Zoom isn't free. YouTube is free to use, but you still have to have streaming encoding. So, and again, we'll get into that as well.
Great. So you had mentioned before, even though we're working in the box, people can come in and out. You don't have a way to really have them buy their tickets, sit in the theater and stay, right?
Right.
So how else have audience changed, but how do you keep them engaged? What can you do? What are some tips you have for keeping an audience engaged?
Well, I think the main thing is having a host of your event, addressing your crowd one-on-one, face-to-face as the host, and commissioning them. If I asked everybody in the chat, let us know where you're from, you're going to get much more engagement rather than just sitting there and telling everybody what you're about to do and playing a song or showing them a photo. You want to get them engaged. So, I know we have questions coming in and we have people, in the chat right now. All those things are ways to get your audience engaged. I want to address one question though. Oh wait, it's gone. Never mind.
I might have answered it.
Okay, good.
Oh, which one?
No, it was the topics question. We're good. So hold on a second, please. Right, asking questions, and then you want to have your, you want to know your story and how you want to tell your story. Think of it like, like I was saying earlier about being a broadcast company, or producing a TV show or a movie, or what, maybe you want to show them the ending first. You want to show them the meatiest part of what you're doing. Basically what we would call it is front loading a show, giving them everything that they want right in the beginning, and then let the rest trickle down, let the rest of the audience trickle off if they want to, but at least you have them right then and there. So that might be giving them the ending first. It might be, I encouraged our last jazz artist, talk for 30 seconds and get into the music, because that's why people are signing in. If people are signing in for one thing, give it to them, because you're they didn't buy a ticket, they didn't walk in, they didn't sit down, and they don't have to worry about 8 people in the row to go, to go to the bath, whatever they have to do. You don't have that luxury anymore. So we have to grab the attention, capture the attention, and continually give them new things to either pay attention to, look at, read, watch, uh, as much as possible, to make sure that they're going to sit and stay, or at least come back.
Mm-hmm. And on that note about engaging, it's not just keeping them in the house, right, or on the stream. But do you have any tips on possibly monetizing streams or programs?
Well, it's all about your call to action, and that's something that Dan and Sean will be talking about in the PR the next PR workshop in a couple of weeks. But you want to ask, if they're there, talk to them and get them to send, fill out a form on an email, or fill out a form with their email, something where they have to take action. And you got to get excited about it. Like, I'm excited about this. Maybe I've had a lot of caffeine right now, which I did, but get excited, ask them questions, ask them to do stuff. It's much more fun when you have people actually engaging with you in a chat, rather than just sitting there and then you don't know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of want to, give them a reason to type, for our jazz, again, we had the New Music Horizons concert on Sunday. What we have is a software that will pull comments from YouTube and then put it on the screen. Mm-hmm. That right there, that gets people, they might put what I say up on the screen. Okay. So repeat their comments. Mm-hmm. If they're saying something in the chat, address them. And there are ways to do that, especially in YouTube. YouTube has a setting where you can set the latency, meaning the time it takes from your stream to come from your computer to the viewers. You can set that latency way low if you want to increase your engagement. So that way, if somebody types something up on the chat and you say it, it's not going to be a minute and a half later. It might be 20 seconds instead.
So that call to action can be anything from, hey, stay involved in the chat, ask us any questions, but also from going back to monetizing it. It could be asking them to donate, whether it's for a fundraiser for like a GoFundMe or something along those lines. But, do you have anything about like asking people to pay even before streaming, like buying tickets? Do you have any recommendations, or how do you feel about charging for a particular stream?
It's a challenge. I think right now we're at the point where it's going to be more widely accepted to pay for a stream. And I think the biggest, it's about that broadcast mentality, where if you're going to have an event, you're going to want to create promo material for it beforehand. And you're going to want to tell the story about how you came to the event, how you're making it, what are you doing, maybe some behind the scenes footage or what have you. And then, that's when you start talking about the cost, because if people, if you want people to see the value of what you're doing, and they're not going to see that unless you tell the story about what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're doing it, why they want it, and how they get it. And then, send us a donation of this much or whatever it may be. We'll send you the link for the event. And, you know, I mean, at this point, that's where we're at.
And so to kind of follow up on that, Andrea asked a follow-up question about Lincoln Center having tickets for sale through Square. I'm not super familiar with Square as a platform, but typically, like if you're using like PayPal or Eventbrite, those systems that kind of act as a box office, typically what happens is they have to pay for the ticket, and it's up to you to, whether through the system, to send them the direct link and have it be a private stream, basically.
Right. Yeah, I'm familiar with Square also. Andrea, I think what you would do is you would set up the ticket as a product, and then you would obviously place the price on the product and then send them the link to that product page, where then they can then opt to purchase and put in their info, and then it would be up to you at that point to track who has paid and then send them a link to to the event.
But in the end, I mean, regardless of what platform you're using to manage these sales, it sounds like it is a lot about how you're presenting it, how you're marketing it. And I guess that's a little plug and a call to action, like be sure to RSVP for next month's, because we'll be going over digital marketing. But that, I think that's the most direct way in terms of how to monetize your stream, is it's selling yourself. And as artists, I'm sure you're all doing that. So again, we'll be going over that next month, but I think the next step is let's talk about kind of resources for bringing everything online. You know, this is all about, especially times like this, it's all about maximizing your time and your money as artists, right? So I think the next section, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what's worth spending money on, when is it worth just getting it for free. Let's start with hardware and equipment. Take it away, Steve.
Okay. Hardware is the most important thing, when it comes to efficiency and speed and capabilities. It may sound like a no-brainer, but if you have a computer from, I don't want to say a certain year, because it really depends on what you're doing. If you're doing graphic artistry, or if you're doing video, you need something newer, let's say. I'll use that term very loosely, but your hardware, are you using a PC or a Mac? What's your CPU speed? What's your RAM count? What does your graphics look like? So how much graphic RAM do we have? So at Flushing Town Hall, for instance, we have I believe it's an 8-core i7 with 32 gigabytes of RAM and 8 gigabytes of video RAM to run what we're doing. And we're not doing anything that's huge here, but it's enough because we're running video conferencing, and then pre-recorded videos, and then going out either 720 or 1080p at 30 frames a second at then coming from computers, then you get into your internet. And this is a really big misnomer. I'm skipping around a little bit, but I'm going to get to the lighting, camera, and sound stuff too. So what was it? Sorry, I just got distracted by that chat. Thanks, Selena. Take it easy. So when the misnomer in upload speed has to do with megabytes and megabits. I don't know if any of you have heard of this. If you have, please stop me in the chat. But for the sake of doing this, megabits are not megabytes, and that's a big mistake that I admittedly made back in May. I went by the book. I thought that I had the just enough upload speed to do what we needed to do, and it was not enough. So at minimum, we're looking at 300 upload, not 300 download like what's advertised, on the next bargain plan that they have on TV. We're talking about 300 megabytes upload, and that has a lot to do with the internet provider, not necessarily just the numbers. And we can get into that. I'm not going to belabor that point, but you really have to understand megabits and megabytes and what they really mean, because they're not the same. We're talking about a very big difference between the two. So when it comes to your
So
comp,
sorry to stop you there. So it's not, it's sometimes like our home internet connection may not be enough depending on what we want to do. Is that what you're saying?
right, right, and you know, you're looking at the difference between Wi-Fi and being wired.
Hmm.
Some Wi-Fi is actually even faster than a wired connection, but it's not as stable at
Hmm.
all. So you want to make sure that you wired in, and you know, you have to double check, triple check what you're doing when it comes to your upload speed if you're going to be streaming anything. This is very different from just creating, you know, a video composition or a or just a, you know, graphic artistry or whatnot. If you're going to be doing any kind of live stream at all, you need to look at your upload speed, make sure that you're wired in, and make sure that your PC can handle that kind of output.
And that's what you're talking about. Like, you went through really quick the specs, but like, the RAM and the graphics capabilities
Mhm.
of your computer. So I think that's another challenge or another aspect that you need to consider, right? When you're
Absolutely.
going completely live. And that's why, depending on your capacity, it might be worth going pre-recorded.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I mean, if you want to be safe about it and you want something that's stable, that's rock solid, that's not going to have any kind of hiccups, absolutely go pre-recorded. But then you have to really plan out how your pre-recorded program is going to go, what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, and make sure that your pacing is on.
Mhm.
That might mean editing, and we're going to get into editing, but editing for pacing, not just for time. Like, you know, obviously some, you know, we all want to, you know, trim the extraneous pieces of our, you know, of our compositions, of our presentations, whatever it is, but you want to also pace it the right way too. um, if you have lots of ums and pauses, and maybe you said something that you said, you know, earlier that you know, you're saying later, well, pick one, cut, you know, and cut the other out. And that's really, really important. And then let's get into lighting for a second. Is that good?
Yeah.
All right. So lighting, obviously the lighting that I have is right here. It's all fluorescent, so you want to be very aware of where your backlights are, of course. And then you want to, you know, if it's just you, a solo shot, or if you know, if it's a two shot or whatever the case may be, you want to make sure that you're creating high contrast. And what I mean by that is the back wall here is lit, which makes the outline of my face very, very easy to see. So whatever will help produce more clarity in your subject, meaning the person who you're, you know, recording, you want to make sure that you make the most out of that. So that might be as simple as using as much natural light as possible. And then if you have the ability to, you know, to get any extra lights, you can look for low cost lighting kits on Amazon. I mean, you can get three lights and a green screen for probably like $150 now. So, you know, there are cheaper solutions. Um, but you want to make sure that you at least you have the basics of lighting in your head. You don't have to be a lighting designer, but you want to know enough so that somebody who is a skilled video editor or maybe a color correction person, they can work with it. So you want to learn things like color temperature when you're dealing with video, meaning from cool to warm. A warmer a warmer color temperature has more yellow in it. Cooler temperature has more blue in it. You want to get somewhere in the middle to balance it out, which is typically known as white balance. And if you have that, then it makes it much easier for someone who, you know, is in the video field to work with your footage and make it look even 10 times better than it might be right when you give it to them. So those are, I mean, there are massive amounts of videos on this online, and I would suggest before anybody uses Google, don't don't use Google. The first 3 pages of Google searches are all paid advertisements. The best search engine we have is YouTube for sure, and there's so many people giving such good explanations. It's really just about finding what personality works best for your learning, how you learn. So that's lighting, and like I said, you can find a million. It's insane how much stuff you can find on there.
So but it also like, I think it takes a little bit more prep than a normal, just, it's not just plug and play. That's what I'm hearing is, hey, test your camera, make sure it looks good. Maybe you have to tweak your lights here and there and see what you're going. But
Absolutely.
for the most part, how vital do you think it would be to buy a complete like lighting setup, or like a spot and a ring light or whatever it might be?
Could never hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to have more light to work with is better than have none. Is better than having none, or only being able to shoot at certain times of the day. If you're shooting indoors and the light only comes through your windows at from 11 to 3, that's not a lot of time to do things.
Let's go on to cameras then.
Yeah. So cameras, um, you know, go with what you have to start out with. Always start out with a phone. Why not? It's what everybody's doing. It's what everybody's used to right now. And the other thing that I want to talk about, I know this is a tech thing, but this is a production thing. People value talent. They value the content that you're putting out there more than they value what you're using to capture it. In most cases, you may get a few judgy people with their arms crossed in the back, and that's what's going to happen in any situation, no matter who you are or what you're doing. So use what you have to start out with. If you want to scale up and go with a higher definition webcam or a DSLR, a DSLR, I don't know if many of you know, but it's basically just it's the camera with the body and the lens that comes separate, so you can change lenses. That's a DSLR. And you can make those into a webcam. You can use them to output HDMI to a computer using a capture card. There's a million ways to do that as well. But, excuse me, you're going to want an attachment for your phone that can grip it and hold it. I have one of these right now. It's a little tripod, $20 on a tabletop. You can actually wrap it around. You can wrap it around a pole. Where that way it's really easy, really versatile. If you want to go, scale up, again, get a tripod. You can get a tripod for $80, $100, $300 if you really want one, but you don't need much right now. Some of our other programs have been done with phones, and people want to see the talent more than they care about what it's shot on. If you can shoot a car commercial on an iPhone, I can pretty much guarantee you could do whatever you're going to do on a phone that was made in the last 2 years or 3.
Someone had asked, how could we go about testing our live before going live? And I think that's just, take a day. If you're shooting your concert at 7 p.m. and the light's going to be, you want to see what the light is a few days before you're supposed to set up.
Right, but
at 7 p.m. I would suggest, but.
Yeah, Albany, are you talking about the technical, like how do you actually do it, or like how do you test it? Because there's ways to do that too. What platform are you talking about? YouTube or Facebook? Got it. Let me know if you're using Facebook or YouTube. Either way, I think the answer could be applied to both. If you schedule a stream, okay, Instagram, I don't think you can test it. You just go live and that's it. For Facebook Live, though, what you can do is you can schedule a stream. Facebook will only allow you to schedule a stream up to a week prior. You can't schedule it further in advance. Then what you would do, once you have the stream scheduled, you can then actually maybe. What if I screen share? What do you think, Dan?
You know what? We're kind of hopping all over the place right now.
Yeah.
Let's finish, if we can finish the hardware and equipment stuff, and then we can maybe, I think this will fit along at the end about doing a production plan.
That's why I need you, Dan.
But yeah, so let's go to sound.
Okay.
You know,
Albany, I'll get to your question afterwards, I promise.
we're hearing that we can do a lot with just our phones. We don't necessarily have to go really deep into buying a DSLR or whatever it might be. But how about sound? And then just, you had mentioned green screens, but just backdrops in general.
Right. So yeah, I'll go with the green screen stuff first. Green screen's great, but you have to be careful because it can actually create more problems than you think. If your green screen is not lit evenly, you'll have a really hard time getting it out of the background. If you're looking for perfection and high definition shots, your lighting has to be superb. Again, lots of YouTube videos on this, but if you are too close to your green screen, you will get what's called light spill, and that will be green borders on your shoulders and on your hair. So you have to make sure that there's white light on you, obviously not blown out, but you want white light on the subject, and then you want an even light on the green screen. That can get expensive and kind of hard to do. So again, how much do you need this green screen? And you know what? A lot of software out there, even Zoom has the replaceable backgrounds that will do it with AI, and it'll cut your outline out. Maybe for a theater presentation, or some sort of scripted read through where you just need some scenery, that might be fine. You really have to determine what the level of mistakes that you're willing to make in the process, because you may actually end up having to go back, and then it becomes, the art and the joy of doing it kind of gets lost. And although this is a tech workshop, I'm trying to kind of point everybody in the direction of getting things executed, but also not losing the art in it. Because really, what we're all losing out on in the last 8 months is the connection with our art and our audiences, right? So, I could give everybody a million tips on how to do one thing extra great, but if it's getting in the way of you actually creating, then it's time to think about other methods of how to get it done. So let's talk about sound. This happens to be my specialty. I'll try not to go any longer than I have with anything else, but I want to talk about microphones, mic technique, and acoustics. So when if you're capturing your sound from a phone, you have to consider the distance that your phone is from your sound source, meaning your mouth, or if it's an instrument, then it's your instrument. When you point a microphone at something, you're not just capturing the sound from that instrument or from that voice. You're capturing the sound from the voice, and you're also capturing the sound that's bounced off of all of the walls too. So you want to make sure that your microphone is as close to the sound source as possible to eliminate any other echoes in the room. So how can we do that? Well, we can get a very inexpensive lavalier mic, which can plug right into a phone. They come in lots of lengths, so you could get one that's 20 feet long if you want a distant shot from you. You can also get wireless ones. They're a lot more expensive though, so you might want to go with wired. Or you could also record the sound individually and then sync it up later if you know how to do that. And then we're going to get into all that software stuff later in a little while. But you want to, again, make sure that your ambience is low. So the other way that you might be able to do that is to throw up some blankets on the walls. If you have hardwood floors, throw a carpet down, or another blanket or sleeping bag, whatever you got, anything that's absorbent, that's going to help you dramatically. When you do that, if you're reducing even 25% of the echoes in the room, then that's really, really good. I just saw a question come in.
I'll take care of the questions.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I get distracted, guys. It's a tech thing. I don't know. So
do you have a particular mic brand that you'd recommend?
To be honest, the quality level of these lavalier mics it's pretty even. What we're looking for is low noise. So every single electronic device makes its own noise within the device. If a microphone ends up amplifying that, then that's a bad noise. That's a bad microphone. So what we're trying to do is keep the noise floor down. So to answer your specific question, sometimes it actually has to do more with price than it does with manufacturer. Um, More often than not, because it's very hard these days for manufacturers to get away with overcharging for bad products because they lose business instantly. So if you find a product that's in the mid range, you in the audio world, you pretty much know what you're going to get. So I would just go, just try not to get the cheapest thing. Go for something if it's 20, 30, 40. I mean, I have one here. This one's by Shure. Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, this one's by Shure. This one $80 just for this. It's only like a 5-foot cord, plugs right in here. You clip it to your lapel, and it's perfect for speaking, singing, or what have you. And that's it. So, again, just try, don't go for the cheapest one, just go a little higher. And more often than not, probably 99% of the time, it's going to be just fine for what we need to do.
Got it. Thanks. Anything else you want to add about sound? Or do you want to move
Always.
on? Okay, you know what? Let's move on to software. There was a question about OBS, and I think that's a nice move to different softwares. Again, these are resources and programs that Steve's been using. It's been what's working for him, not necessarily what the best out there is, but this is what the best has been for Steve and for Flushing Town Hall. You want to start with? I guess we can just go down the list.
Sure. I before I say this, I want to let everybody know that I didn't give any. I gave no props to PCs tonight, with the exception of OBS, and Pro Tools. But for video editing, you see Final Cut Pro there. Obviously, there's Adobe Premiere. There's Adobe Premiere Pro. There's a lot of we'll go with the ones that we have listed. So we have Blender. Blender is actually a 3D modeling software, but it has a video editing function in it. And that's free. So awesome, free. iMovie comes with any Mac that you buy. Comes with iPhones. Again, great resource. Final Cut Pro, even better. Now there's a lot of industry dissonance when it comes to Final Cut Pro versus Adobe Premiere, which is what I'm going to talk about also. Adobe Premiere works on Mac and PC. Final Cut Pro is only for Mac, and these are more advanced video editing software. So there is going to be a learning curve. So if you're looking at doing any kind of complicated editing, that means you're going to have picture in picture, or you're going to have any multicam shots. So if you have 4 angles of the same thing, that would be a multicam shot. Then you're going to want to go with something more advanced like Final Cut Pro or Adobe Premiere. But if you're just going from one cut to the next in a linear fashion, meaning the first, in order of in chronological order in your timeline of your performance, then you can go with something that's easy, free, and simple. When it comes to audio editing, I've been a Pro Tools user for 20 something years now. It's what I know. It's an industry standard, and Pro Tools First is free. You can get I believe it's a 16-track capable audio editing and mixing, and that's free. And the great thing there is that, as we learn tech as artists, you can then apply what you learn in Pro Tools to pretty much anything else out there. So there's a lot of room to grow. And that's kind of the beauty of it, because once you start learning stuff, you can scale up pretty easily with just what you've learned in the free version. We're talking about streaming tools. StreamYard is it's an offline hosted, meaning on the internet. It's a cloud service that allows you to do video conferencing, pre-recorded video playback, and then you can stream out to YouTube, Facebook, or any other RMPT streaming platform.
What's
So
for those who aren't directors of production?
so I actually have to see what it actually stands for. Rtmp, that's what it is. Real-time messaging protocol. So what does that mean? Just means a server URL and a stream key. That's it. So every, Facebook, YouTube, all of these streaming platforms have two things: a streaming URL, a server URL where the data is going, and a key. The key is mainly just so that no one else can take over your stream. So no one else should have that key except you. Or if you have two people in different locations, maybe that somebody over in 3,000 miles away wants to take over the stream, they can have your key, and then once you're done, they can come in with their segment, and there will be no break in the stream, and then it can continue. OBS is a free streaming platform that lives on the computer. It's a native application. That means it lives on the computer. Like I said, it is free. Now, it's open source. So there's a whole community of users in the OBS world, in the OBS ecosystem, let's say. They make plugins for it, meaning they make other effects or other code patches. So let's say maybe you have two cameras that are feeding your stream. They have people who've written code for a automatic switcher. So if you want to just automatically switch between camera 1, camera 2 at a certain interval, maybe 30 seconds apart, there's a plugin for that. And there are many, many plugins for it. The only downside to having OBS is that there's no tech support. There's no paid tech support. There's not a hotline you can call if something's going wrong. You're very much reliant on the community, and in most tech communities, people are, there's always people who are going to be, trolling the noob, but then there are other people who are more than willing to help, and you will find those people. But OBS is a great resource because it's super simple, and once you learn it, everything else seems easy, to be honest with you.
So before we move on from software, Nancy and Tecumseh both had kind of questions about issues with Zoom. Nancy had a pre-recorded performance where all the audio cut out in Zoom, and then the only thing that was there that could be played out was the spoken word. And then Tecumseh is asking about, sometimes Zoom's cutting out low or high pitches. Is that a Zoom thing? Like, has there been just like a known issue with streaming solely on Zoom and not maybe using StreamYard or OBS?
Maybe. I haven't looked into exactly what StreamYard does, but with Zoom was specifically made for speech, and what it will do is it will filter out anything that doesn't sound like speech. So if you feed drums into it, it's going to interpret that as noise. So it's going to immediately turn it down and sometimes cut it off. I had this happen months ago with a solo drum piece for our virtual jazz jam. If you look at it in terms of, as an audio person, and you have to think about how dumb software can be, right? Software, if it's set to recognize noise, if it sees something that looks like a drum pattern, it sees all these spikes coming in, it's going to think that something really bad is happening. So I need to turn down the volume to preserve everybody's ears. So there's a really easy way around this. It's called original sound, and there's also a noise suppression feature that you can reduce. Original sound is a big deal. Tecumseh and who did you say? Who was the other? Nancy and Tecumseh. Do you guys have original sound turned on? Do you know?
Well, let's suggest that they have original sound. and the
Well, I mean, it might not be. That's why. I mean, it's a
so
big deal.
Nancy says she didn't have it.
Okay, so there you go. So I think after we get through the rest of this, I'm gonna hold that, and I'll do a quick tutorial on how to minimize that. Does that sound good?
Great.
Cool.
So let's go on to you had talked about how we shouldn't use Google, right?
Right.
Um, we shouldn't use Google, and that YouTube is usually the best kind of resource to kind of self-educate. That I want to learn how, maybe, I want to say, hey, my music's cutting out in Zoom all the time. I want to learn how to turn off, what is it called? Real sound?
Original sound.
Original sound. I want to learn how to turn it on or turn it off.
You want to turn it on.
Yeah, so I want to learn how to turn on
Right. So
original
you want to
sound.
look.
So
You'd want to search for how to use Zoom for music. That's probably the best phrase, the best search phrase that you can use to find this. If you YouTube original sound right now, you will find 20 results right now, because everybody in the entire world has had this issue at least once in the last 8 months. So yeah, that should be, that would be how you would find it, no doubt. So these are just a couple of channels that I use to just to just to kind of check myself when I'm going through workflows. The Frugal Streamer, Stream Geeks, Pix Imperfect is a Photoshop guy who's awesome. He's great, and sometimes I use that for promo material for other projects as well.
and do you have any other like tips when I'm on YouTube and I'm like, something's breaking and I'm trying to figure out, should I be as general as possible with my search terms, or
If you're looking to fix a, okay, so I've been saying this whole time, don't use Google. If you're looking for something that's a quick fix, and you know what your problem is, or you at least know how to articulate your problem, you're going to want to look for a written instruction set on Google. That would be the only time I would say you want to use Google. For tutorial stuff, if you're just looking on, for process and workflow, yeah, use YouTube because you have the time to dedicate. But if you're troubleshooting something that you need an answer like in 5 or less minutes, you're always going to want to look for something written, because it will tell you what menu to go to, what to choose in that menu, and then where to go from there. If you go through a YouTube video for something that's urgent, you're going to deal with ads. You're going to deal with this guy selling his channel, telling you to like and subscribe and all these little things, and leave a comment and blah, blah, blah. And before you, then you're in it 5 minutes already, you've got nothing. So again, if it's something that's urgent, yeah, use Google and find a written listed bullet point process on how to get it fixed.
got it. But and then YouTube is more for general, like, hey, I want to learn how to do
Yeah,
stream music on Zoom,
right, for
or
tutorial things, and for things you have time to figure out, and if it's a learning curve that you don't mind climbing for the time being, yeah, absolutely, because you'll find certain people who just maybe have the personality that you like, and then they're going to show you 20 different things that are going to be really useful.
got it. So, and the nice thing about YouTube and Google, it's free. I might have to watch an ad, but like when we're talking about maximizing my time and my money, when would you say it's worth hiring something out? Hiring someone to do something, and
Yeah.
we give Fiverr and Upwork are more for what? For general everything, but sound better is really for
Sound Better is geared more towards audio production and finding musicians,
Mhm.
doing post production. There's some video editing on there as well, but Fiverr has been a really great resource for me because it's very well curated. Um, the sellers there are they're organized on levels. So if you want something that's like a premium service, and still may not cost you a whole lot of money, Fiverr is great. Upwork, I don't really use Upwork. I know it exists. I know that people use it, but Fiverr's been my go-to when it comes to getting people to do like 3D animations for logos, or pretty much anything else. I mean, I've hired actors off of it. It's been an interesting place to be. But I would say, whenever you think you're spending way more time than you want to, that's the time to really consider whether or not you want to spend another X amount of hours learning this while you could be creating or doing something else. The other thing I know we touched on it in our meetings, Dan, is file sharing programs, file sharing services, uh, Google Drive, Dropbox, OneDrive, uh, iCloud, whatever it is. Pay the $3 a month, just because you might be uploading a file. Let's say you're uploading a really big video from home, and you have to do things. You have errands to run. Well, you can check on that upload on your phone using Google Drive or Dropbox or iCloud at any time. That way, you're not sitting there watching paint dry on your computer waiting for something to happen. So, the I would say the to be honest, the best $3 a month I spend is on my iCloud account and my Google Drive account and my Dropbox account.
Got it.
Like that's without a doubt a huge deal.
So that's probably one of the first things that you would pay for is paying for storage, paying for the ability to actually send these big video or image or music files.
Yeah, I mean, if there's an error and maybe a collaborator or a client is asking you for you to send them something, and you say, "Oh, I'm not at the studio right now." You don't even have to give them an excuse. You don't have to worry about it, and you can and you can just send it to them from your phone because it's not actually on your phone, right? But you can still get it to them without having to go back to your desk or back on your laptop or whatever it is.
Got it. So to kind of end this, we are talking about having a presentation plan. To go to Albany's question, and
Yeah.
let's talk about it then, is just when should I plan on having my test? And
Okay, so if you want to test a stream, you have to take into account the time of day, right? If it's a high traffic time of day, where meaning if everybody's on Netflix at 7 o'clock p.m. while uh, while you're going to be streaming for real, then you're gonna want to test it at 7 o'clock on a Thursday night or whenever it is, just to make sure that things are good. Let's say.
Mhm.
Uh, if you're testing it at 3 p.m. when most people are either at work, I mean, these days we're all working from home anyway, right? But a lot of people don't have that luxury. So, but the traffic is lower at 3 p.m. It just is. So you want to test at the time of day that you're going to be doing it, and then you would schedule a stream, and then you can go into the stream control panel, or sometimes they call it the producer panel, or YouTube and Facebook. All these different platforms, they have different names for everything. You're going to want to go into your scheduled stream, get your server URL, your stream key that we talked about earlier, and then just start pumping a signal to it. Start streaming from your, if you're using OBS, or if you're using whatever you're using, input your credentials, your stream URL, and your stream key, and you should get a preview. If you're not getting a preview, then you have a problem to fix. Does that help at all?
If you guys have any questions, we're getting towards the end of our session, but so please throw them in the Q&A. But just to go over kind of everything that you went over, Steve, was intros and outros. It's all about that call to action in the end, right? So keep your intro short, but make sure that the point gets across what you're hoping the audience takes away from it, whether it's liking and subscribing my channel, or maybe signing up for something, or even giving us a donation.
Well, what I've noticed is that in most cases everybody rehearses the material. They rehearse the music or they rehearse whatever, but they don't rehearse the speaking.
Mm-hmm.
They don't rehearse now we're all putting this into this. Now we're salespeople at the same time. If you can hire a host or you have somebody who's willing to host for you, great. That's awesome. But make sure that they're giving it to, giving the right information to your audience in order to get them to not only engage, but hopefully to help you out financially for all of the work you're putting into your art. So again, rehearse your spiel. If you don't know your spiel, well, there's three points that you can use. There's, what do I have for you as an audience? I'm the artist, right? What do I have for you? Why would you want it? And how do you get it?
Mm-hmm.
If you leave it to those 3 points, that can get you somewhere, rather than sitting there and you may not know what to say, and you want to be earnest, but if you have it prepared, it's much better.
Yeah, and I think Andrea kind of sums it up pretty well. Is we're not just performing anymore. We're not just presenting. We have to think kind of holistically about marketing, about promotion, having that clear call to action online so you can keep your audiences engaged,
Right.
while also hopefully in the end keeping them entertained, presenting your art, but getting that subscription, getting that donation, getting that paid ticket. And a lot goes into it, but it's not always just we need to pay $500 for someone to do this, or I need to buy a $300 camera to make this happen. I could, if I plan ahead and maybe have to watch a couple YouTube tutorials, I can use my phone and maybe a $50-$80 mic to record this and have it presented. And maybe, yeah, unfortunately we won't be able to do it streamlessly live right now, but it's all about practicing, and we're figuring out as we go. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with a pre-recorded performance, right? Maybe you have that pre-recorded, but also if you want a live component, have it be Q&A, have it be an artist talk. And a lot of people are doing that right now, and it's not it's not going to be expected to have a completely live on Facebook Live or on YouTube or on Zoom, a completely live performance or presentation, because unfortunately it's all about keeping the integrity of the art.
Yes, and that was I remember the name of that other streaming platform was called Stage It. Stage It. STAGEIT.com. And they are a free streaming platform that allows you to charge for tickets and take money. So again, the opportunity is there to do it live, but if it's not there for you, with your hardware that you have, if you're limited in your hardware, maybe if you only have a phone, then maybe make something pre-recorded. That's just fine. And look at people who are making money. Watch GoFundMe pages. Look at GoFundMe and see how they're putting together their video presentations. How are they telling their story? Obviously if they're selling an electronic product, you're going to have to adapt it to an artist, right? I mean, it's not the same thing, but you can find lots of great models for how to put together a story that is your own, that people will identify with.
Got it. Well, I think that's a good spot to kind of press pause. Nancy and Tecumseh, we're going to do that really quick tutorial on how to turn on original sound, if you bear with us. But if you guys want to stay on, send any questions that you have in the Q&A section. We're here until the last person leaves. If you have any particular questions that you want to email to us, here's our email address. And please visit our website at flushingtownhall.org to see what other programs that we're doing. And I guess our call to action is, we are in a different world, and unfortunately we've had to close our theater and haven't been able to have paid programs. So if you enjoyed our programs tonight or our previous programs, please visit flushingtownhall.org/donate. And anything that you can give us to support just helps us continue programs like this. And yeah, so please stay on. Please send any questions that you have on the Q&A. We're going to still be here. I'm going to stop sharing this slideshow and let Steve visit. Sorry, Steve, walk you through on how to turn on
Yeah,
organic.
I won't need screen share. I'm gonna have to talk it through. Maybe who was it? Tecumseh and Nancy.
Yeah,
Let's let them in. Let's make them panelists real quick. Let's get them on here.
great. And while you're doing that, just to plug, next month, we're going to have developing a successful marketing and PR strategy. I'll be moderating that conversation. It'll feature Sean Choi, our Director of Marketing and Community Engagement, as well as Jeff Simmons, the Executive Vice President, and Anand Gerstein, who's a PR firm that we've worked with for some time now. You can visit our website to RSVP. That's open now. And we're looking forward to seeing you guys.